Well, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 53 of Very Fun Adventures. My name is Tanya and I'm coming to you from Southeast Minnesota, where my family and I run a fruit farm that specializes in strawberries and Concord grapes and naturally dyed yarn. So welcome. If you are new to the channel, thanks for checking it out. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. It has been, I think, only about 3 weeks since I came to you last, so not too bad. A lot has happened, I guess, personally in my life, in the sense that things have been going on. I published another hat pattern on Ravelry and on my website. So I'm going to tell you all about those things in this episode, as well as what I have been working on and finishing and what is to come during the month of December. But before I get into all the details, I will give you a quick life catch-up. And if you're not interested in that, you can just fast forward on to the knitting projects. Since I came to you last, I had a couple things. First off, my garter season hat pattern came out. That was published last week, I believe. And I will talk more about that towards the end, and actually not even towards the end, when I get to finished objects, because I'm going to be showing you some of those. But one thing to know, if you do not stick around till the end and you are interested in that pattern, it is on sale right now on Ravelry for 20% off through the end of November. So if you're interested in that, it's a great time to get the pattern during its first couple weeks of release. And then the other big thing that happened was my third son, my oldest son that is at home right now. He is a senior in high school, and he performed in the Beauty and the Beast, which was not the Disney version, because then you have to pay for all of the Disney rights and yada, yada, yada. But it was a adaptation of the original Beauty and the Beast story. But he played the Beast and the Prince, and I have been, for the last, I think, 3 years, I volunteer as a stage manager, which basically means that for about half of the shows, they had 7, I think, or 8 shows this year. So for about half of the shows, I am on headset in the backstage area, and I help with making sure props get on the stage when they need to, and everybody is where they're supposed to be. And if something goes wrong, then the director who's cueing and calling the performance will tell me through the headset, and I'll have to relay it to dancers and all that kind of stuff. So it has been a busy week, because that means that not only has my son been at the theater for Tech Week and rehearsals and dress rehearsals and performances, but so have I. So that was just last week. So it is Tuesday, November 19th. Yesterday was just kind of a blur as we got back into our re-entry, because performances were Thursday night, there was one. Friday, there were 2 school performances, and then an evening performance, and then 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. And then on top of that, my youngest son was in an orchestra concert. And so that was on Sunday. So I didn't get to go to that because I was at the other theater. So I got to see videos of that. And then, family visits, and our older sons came back from college. So we had to coordinate driving and picking them up. And so it's been a busy, I would say, since the Thursday before, because that's when I picked up my first son from college. So it's been busy. And then in the middle of that, I kind of had a cold. And so, as it is when you hang out with lots of little people, lots of germs flying around. But I'm feeling better today, and I really wanted to get this episode out to you because I wanted to share the exciting news about the garter season hat coming out. I wanted to share a few finished objects with you, and then also I wanted to let you know of a big sale that's happening in Very Fun Yarns online store starting tomorrow, the 20th of November, and it will be going through the end of the month. But it's going to be one of the biggest sales, probably the biggest sale that I have throughout the year. So I didn't want you to miss on that if you were interested, and I will talk more details about that later, but there will be a few details listed below in the show notes section of this video. So without further ado, let's move on to some finished objects. So the first thing I finished is a big one. Look, it's behind me. It is my pixie dust blanket. Now, before I show you this in all of its glory, let me just say that this pattern is a modification of my own doing off of a cowl pattern called the Pixie Dust Cowl that was put out of K by the Bakery Bears. But it is a patron-only pattern, which means that it's not available for purchase to the general public. You have to be a patron, so you have to pay a monthly subscription to support them on their Patreon account, their Patreon page, and then you get free patron patterns throughout the year. The Bakery Bears, just a little plug here. I love Dan and Kay. They are fabulous. They put out amazing content. They're wonderful and creative, and they always inspire me. So I am an advocate for them. So if you love this pattern, you will love all of the other things that they do. I'm certain. And, you can always subscribe for a month or two. Get in some free patterns, and then if you decide it's not for you, you can change your mind. But so if you're looking for this pattern, you will not find it on Ravelry. It is only through their Patreon page. So it was a cowl pattern that she put out, and what I did was, here's a pro tip too. If you find a cowl pattern or something that's in a different form and you want it to be flat and make it into a blanket or a scarf, you can modify that and do that. And that is what I did. So I made it a few more stitches to make it wider. And then so if you're knitting in the round all the time, then you know that sometimes you're going to have to purl when you're going flat, right? Because in order to create stockinette, you knit one way, you purl back. So I modified it in that case. But here it is. Hold it up. This was my 2022 Winter Solstice Countdown, the yarn from Lavender Loon. So I have been working on this for 2 years almost. So it was a compilation of 21 mini skeins. So it started, I think actually it started on this end with the dark. And then it got lighter. It was kind of a fade into the blues, and then it ended again with the purple. But it's quite large. And let me see if I can stand up and give you a better view of it. I push my chair back here. But it's pretty wide. I would say I'm here. It's not as wide as my wingspan for sure, and lengthwise, it's touching the floor right now, so it goes up to my chest. So pretty long. I'll put a picture in here of it lying across the chair, my comfy chair that I usually sit at when I'm knitting. But I love it. It blocked out really nicely and gave it a lot of length. So I was really happy with that. I was kind of afraid at first with only 21 mini skeins that maybe it wouldn't, it wouldn't give me enough size. But it really is quite drapey. It's made in a fingering weight yarn, and I think I used a US 4. It would be on my project page if you want to double check. But so I finished that. That was a fabulous finish. And then I'll talk about this in a little bit after I'm done with my finished objects here. But I kind of went through some finish or frog it days where I was looking at my projects and I was like, okay, I'm either going to finish these or I'm going to frog them. But I'm not taking these things into the new year with me if I don't really love the project. So I'll tell you about I frogged 2 things. So I'll tell you about those here in a little bit. But I did finish, on top of this, 2 pairs of socks. So this is the first one. This is a DK pair of socks. I have them on my blockers here. And these are quite large. These are a size 12 US men's foot. They are for my 12-year-old son. And what I did is I held fingering weight double. So my sock blocker is obviously not big enough because he's got way bigger feet than the rest of us that I knit for. But they turned out great. Did the toe, but I ended up doing a rib down the whole, a 2x2 rib down the whole top of the foot just because he is growing, and I wanted them to be wide enough, but also to kind of cinch and be comfortable on his feet. So I didn't want to make them too big either. So the ribbing was really forgiving in that. So yeah, I finished these, and I can't remember all the yarn. The purple yarn was a gift that I got, I believe, from a friend. And then he picked out this crazy mini, and it was 2 minis, an orange one from, I can't remember anymore, but it's on my project page. Anyway, I held 2 different minis together, a solid orange and then kind of this orange sparkly with pink mixed in. They have a very Halloween vibe to them, but he loves purple, so he'll be glad that I have shared them with you all, because now he can have them. And the second pair of socks that I finished is a pair of socks for my second eldest son, Ian. And these are yarns, a self-striping yarn from, I can't remember, Show Me Yarn, which is they're no longer dyeing. And the first one I made with a mini skein from a homespun house. It's just a gray mini skein. But then, as one has this problem, I'm sure there are some of you out here who this has happened to. You go to make the next sock and you realize you've lost your contrast yarn. And so I did these top down on a size US 0. And so I had done the gray on top, and I found this gray later after I had finished the sock, actually just this weekend. But I must have combined several project bags. You know how you have several projects going, so sometimes you put more than one in a bag, and the contrast yarn got lost. But I had found this. You can see it has a tad bit of purple in it, but it's very similar. Let's see if you can tell. See, you can see one is more purple, one is more gray. However, I don't think he's going to notice. And I wanted to finish it at the time, and I did look through my scraps. I didn't have any other gray that was a light gray that would work. This purpley gray was the best I had, so I just went with it, and good is good. And it's done. These are going to be a gift for him. He is going to be 20. Tuesday before Thanksgiving, so a week from today. So these will be a part of his birthday gifts. So that is pair number 2. And then, what else do I have to show you? Oh, I do have a few more finished objects. I'm going to show them to you in a second. They are my garter season hats. Actually, no, I'll show them to you right now. So the it is not garden season right now. It is hat season. It is garter hat season in this case. So I have 3 different hats that I made. So the garter season hat pattern that just came out is for an Aran weight yarn, but you could also very possibly get the gauge using a worsted weight yarn. So if any of you haven't knit my patterns before, I am a fairly loose knitter. I do try when I write my patterns and I suggest the needle size. I try to go, usually I am a 2 sizes. I have to go down 2 sizes from the average knitting pattern to get the same gauge. So I usually recommend only one size bigger than what I would normally use myself. Now this pattern does have a fair bit of purling in it, which for me, my pearl stitches are much tighter than my knit stitches. So it kind of works out in the end, but I do definitely think you could get gauge with a worsted weight yarn for this. You just have to give it a try and see what you get. Certainly you could make one if you know kind of your gauge. If you work with worsted weight a lot, you would probably could kind of guess, or you could just go up or down a size. So this pattern does come in 3 hat sizes to fit a head circumference between 19 and 23 inches. So remember, when you make hats, when I first started to make hats, hats are pretty easy projects, first projects for new knitters. But you always have to remember that when you are knitting, you generally want 2 to 3 inches of negative ease for the person you're making it for. So for instance, if my head is 22 inches, I want my finished circumference of my hat to be no more than 20 inches around, because it stretches. And if it is too big, then it's just going to be real loosey-goosey and not fit on your head right. So, and also depending on your pattern, you know, this pattern is very stretchy this way. You can get away with that even more. So just be aware of that. When it says it fits a 23-inch head, that means that the finished object is probably around 21 inches in circumference before you stretch it and put it on your head. Okay, so I made a couple different ones because I wanted to show a couple different options. So first of all, this one is pretty much a solid tonal. So you can see the pattern has a nice 1x1 ribbed start. And then it goes into some garter sections with some knit stitches mixed in. It's all knits and purls, just in a different pattern. So it's not complicated at all. And then the decrease is pretty simple. You just, you know, pretty much follow along, and you decrease in the purl sections so that you can keep your running knit stitch towards the top. So this is what it looks like in a solid, depending on how long you decide to make it. So it's very modifiable, and it's supposed to fit kind of like a slight slouch. So not super tight beanie, but a little bit of a slouch. Now, I will say that everybody's head is slightly different. So if you have a longer face, which I do, I needed to make I can fit in the large size, but I really think I would have preferred the medium size for a round, but then I would have preferred the length of the large size, which is pretty typical of me when I do other hat patterns. So just keep that in mind. You can certainly make it longer if you want more slouch. You can start the decreases whenever, and they're pretty much the same. The main difference is that in the larger sizes, you have a few more rows of decrease to make it a more gradual decrease, because of the fact that you're starting with more stitches on your needles around. So you don't want it to be such a rapid decrease that it looks kind of silly. So this is it in a solid. And then I made it in a variegated. Let's see if I put this on. I've kind of crazy hair today already. So this one, you can see it has just a little bit of slouch in the back. It fits pretty well. It's kind of blowing out on the camera. But you can still, you know, the pattern is still that it's simple enough that the variegated yarn doesn't totally get, you know, you don't totally lose the pattern with the variegated, although you do certainly see it more in the solid. And then the last one I did, oh, my hair, I'm not having a good hair day today. The last one I did a worsted. So the other two hats I made with my Very Fun Yarns BFL Aran Superwash. So a very lovely yarn, soft, but not like over the top soft. This one is made with American Worsted, which is a Rambouillet Merino blend that I held, oh, it's kind of over on her head here, my silly mannequin, that I held double with a mohair. So now let me put this one on and see. I'm sure this color is going to blow out. So this hat is a little bit wide around, wider than I would like it, but I prefer the slouch on it more than I did on the other one. So, wow, that color, that light does not like the color on that. There we go. It is a very light, pinky peachy color. I believe there's still quite a few skeins of this left in the shop. It is called, I got mohair in my mouth. It is called I Can't Elope, I'm John Mellencamp. So it's sort of like a pun on fruit, melons and cantaloupes. And yeah, So I really like how this one turned out too. But it's a fun pattern, simple enough to keep, not simple enough to make it go quickly is what I'm trying to say, but also interesting enough to not be totally boring straight stockinette or constant rib pattern. So that is the garter season hat. And like I said, that is available online and on my store front, online, my website, fireflyberries.com. And on Ravelry, it is on sale through the end of the month, 20% off. So, and I should make a note. I just realized I did not put it 20% off on my website, but I will make a note to do that so that I don't forget. All right, so those were my finished objects. So it was at 3 hats, 2 socks, and a blanket. Not too bad, if you ask me. So my frog it or finish it projects. There were 2. The first one was my Louisiana sweater. Now, I'm going to put a little picture up because I started to rip this one out. I have not fully ripped it out yet because it is, the whole body was finished and like probably to here on one of the sleeves. This is one of those projects that a non-knitter would say to you, why are you ripping that out? You were almost done with it. And while that is true, I did not love the project or the product I was getting. So the reason I ripped it out is because, so I had a few snafus in it. Number one, I have already made a Louisiana sweater. I'll put a picture in here. And I like that sweater a fair bit. It is a little more fitted. Now, granted, I've gained a little weight in the last year, but it's a little more fitted and it's still cozy, but the neck also kind of went up high, and I didn't like that quite as much as the Louisiana sweater I made for my husband last year. We'll also put a picture in. That was a little more, when I wore his sweater, it was real baggy and cozy sweatshirt-like. And so my goal with this sweater, the second one, was that it was going to be a cozy sweater. Well, the pattern, I believe, it's a paid-for pattern on Ravelry by Petite Knit. The pattern, I believe, says you're supposed to knit the edges and the ribbing and stuff in the US 11 and the main body in a US 13. Well, I told you this before, I'm a little loose knitter, so I did a US 9 for the neck and US 11 for the body. Well, something must have happened because I realized later, I'm like, why is this not as big as I thought it was? I must have swatched with a US 11, but I actually cast on with a US 10.5, which doesn't seem like that would be a big difference, but let me see where the difference between a 10.5 and an 11 is more than you think. Let's see what it says on my tutu. So a 10.5 is 6.5 millimeters, and an 11 is 8 millimeters. So that's 1.5 millimeters difference in the size of the needle, which is what made my stitches smaller than they were supposed to be. So I finished the body and I tried it on, and it was way more fitted than I wanted. And I was like, okay. So then I started knitting the sleeves, and that's when I realized that I had knit the body on the 10.5 instead of the 11, because my 11 needles were now available in my bag. And I was like, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. So I thought, but this was before I had looked at my little gauge thing to tell me how big of a difference it is between a 10.5 and 11. And so I started to knit them on an 11. So as it would be when I tried them on, when my arm was already down to here, the sleeves were really baggy and cozy, kind of like I wanted. But in contrast, the body was more fitted, so it looked ridiculous. Now, at first I said to myself, I'll just finish this and it'll just be a work sweater outside on the farm when I have to prune grapes in the spring. Big deal. It won't be perfect. But I was hating knitting on it. I didn't absolutely love the color. It was leftover yarn from a blanket that I had made for one of my children. So I wasn't really excited about it. And I thought, okay, well, I would much rather work on a sweater that I love than finish this one and hate it and donate it. I don't know, it just seemed to give the project, whether I wore it or someone else was going to wear it, not a good feeling. So I decided that's getting frogged, and maybe I'll turn it into a cat blanket. Maybe I don't know what I'm going to do with the yarn yet. I haven't decided, but it was already extra yarn from a project that I had been doing for my kids. It wasn't like it was special yarn I had purchased for this project. Had it been, I probably would have continued and ripped out the just the arm and went back to the 10.5 size needles. So that was frog project number 1, and frog project number 2 is actually still on the needles. I have decided I'm frogging it, though I haven't ripped it yet. Okay, first of all, I love the yarn. This is called Witch's Brew, and it is from Very Fun Yarns. There are a couple skeins of this in the shop. I cast this one on to try out the pattern for my new hat pattern that will be coming out. I'm not sure if that will be soon or after Christmas or what will happen. I'll talk more about that in a little bit because I have a prototype done. I have all the hard work, the decreases, the swatching, all that. I just have to do math on the different sizes and write up the pattern. But anyway, this was kind of my try at the pattern that was in my head in a sock version. And what I learned about it is, again, there's a fair bit of purling in this. So normally I am a 60 stitch sock on a US 0 for myself, but look at how skinny this is. I mean, I have skinny feet, but and also because it is tighter, the gauge is tighter because of the purling, it didn't stretch as much. So I want to say I was about 2 inches up, maybe like up to here. And I realized that my gauge was considerably smaller than it normally is. And it was going to be kind of small. So I went up in needle size. So you can see on the top, it's way more stretchy than on the bottom here. I went up to a US 1. And I think maybe I could have continued. But this is one of those projects that I cast on for a purpose that wasn't meant to be a finished object. It happens sometimes. I really wanted to knit on Halloween-y socks, and I cast them on like a week and a half before Halloween. There was no way, with everything else going on, I was going to finish a pair of Halloween socks in a week and a half. And after Halloween, I wasn't really feeling the Halloween socks, and it was already that they were kind of fitted, and I didn't know if I was going to like the fit. So I decided this was a good experiment in helping me figure out my needle size recommendation and how I want to knit my hat that I will show you in a little bit. And I'm just going to rip it out, and I'm going to knit a different pair of socks with this yarn. And in all honesty, it's Halloween-y looking. Let me show you it again. But it's not uber Halloween. Like I may recast it on soon, like soon after I rip it off, because I do like the yarn. I think it's really pretty. I think it would be fun to do it in a more stockinette sort of pattern, because some of the patterning kind of, you lose the pattern in the middle of the crazy variegated. So anyway, those are my 2 froggy projects. So this is me. If you have a project like this, I'm giving you permission to frog it. Look at it. Be tough. Say, am I going to wear this? Is this really something I love? The person I'm making it for, is it the right size? And don't be afraid to rip it out, because ripping it out is just part of the process. It does not mean that you are a bad knitter or a bad crocheter. It is simply a part of the process. That is my PSA for the day. Okay, so those are my frogged projects. I have been working on, this is sort of a finished object. So I'm going to show you this now. This is my new hat pattern. I'm looking at my notes. Yes, I will show you this now. So this is going to be what I will call the Georgie Hat. And it is kind of funny. You can't see it right now, but So here's a prime example of how I design. In my head, I was like, okay, I know what size needles I want to use to get the gauge and the effect that I want. I know what size or what stitch pattern is. It's a 5. I want to make it a 5 stitch repeat. I know what I want to do for my ribbing. And so I was just like, I'm just going to cast on, 95 stitches or whatever it was. I think it was 95. Without the forethought of how I was going to decrease. So my husband, I'm an English teacher before I was a fruit farmer, yarn dyer person. And I was pretty good at math. I was good at algebra. I was, good at basic arithmetic. I never took the really complicated calculus stuff because it just wasn't applicable to me. But I was okay at math, statistics, that kind of thing. But it takes some thought when you're designing a pattern, when you get to the decrease section, because you don't want to lose the integrity of the design, and you want it to flow nicely. You want it to decrease evenly. So then you start doing this in your head. Well, if I have a 5 stitch pattern and I have this many stitches on the needle, how many, and I want to decrease in 4 sections, is this divisible by 4? No. Is it divisible by 6? Is it divisible by... So I realized that I should have cast on in tens when I did, and I didn't. So I did not rip it out. Nope. What I did is I took the 5 extra stitches. Can you see? Maybe you can't see this. I took the 5 extra stitches right here when I wanted to do my decreases, because I was like, well, this hat isn't the right size anyway for what I was going for. I didn't cast on the right number, but I want to figure out the decreases and how many inches of decreases I'll need for each hat so that I can figure out, the sizing of how far you go before you start the decreases, yada, yada. So this little marker is where I started my decreases. So I know now when I do the math for the other hats sizes that this is the length of my decrease section. And then I know now that I have to do my cast-ons in multiples of 10. So it was not in vain, but I'm so proud of the decreases. Can you see those? They turned out so lovely. This is a fun, it's a bit of a broken rib pattern of sorts, but it comes out really cool. And the fun thing about this pattern is that you can also have it the other way. So this is inside out. It just looks slightly different. And the decreases still look fine as well. So in essence, this hat pattern, the Georgie hat, that's coming out soon, it will be kind of reversible. And this is knit on a DK weight. This is my Berry Fun Yarns DK Tweed base, which there is a lot of in the shop right now. Lots of different colors. And I think the pattern is a little bit busier. So it can handle a tweed, but if you, I really think this pattern will not handle a highly variegated yarn well. I think it will do better either with a solid tonal or like a tweed like this, just because I think all the work of the patterning will be lost in the color, or the color is going to be lost in the pattern. You're not going to get the full effect of the design. So yeah, so that is going to be the Georgie hat. Maybe it'll be out the next time. Well, no, I'll tell you about what's happening in December. December will be different because it's Vlogmas coming up. But maybe it'll come out in the next month. I have a couple of very willing, lovely people, you know who you are out there, already volunteered to test it for me when I get it written up. So I know that I have some volunteers lined up. It's just a matter of me getting it written up. All right, so last thing are my whips. I've only really been working on, besides that, 2 other projects. One looks pretty much the same since the last time I showed it to you. This is the Lassie sweater, I think is how you say it. It is in this book. Let's see, I have it on my desk. It is in Viking Knits. It is actually the book or the pattern right on the cover there. It is for my son Ian. I had high hopes that maybe I'd finish it for his birthday in a week, but that is probably very unlikely unless I only knit on this. But that being said, I do have almost the entire body done. This is being knit on the American Worsted Very Fun Yarns base in the Mermaid colorway. It's like blues and greens. And so this one, it has a very weird construction. I think I've mentioned this before. I don't know why they made it so complicated. It is basically a drop shoulder sweater, but it's knit from the bottom up, and then there's this V-neck. Let me see if you can see it on here. See this V-neck spiel here? So you knit it from the bottom up to the armpits, and then you do the back kind of by itself, and then you come back and you do the front here, and then you pick up for your sleeves, and you pick up for this little shawl collar spiel there. So, and it's written with very minimal directions. So it is taking all of my power. It's one of those where it's like knit for 3 more inches and at the same time decrease at both ends, and then it gives you a couple numbers. It doesn't tell you how many every round you're supposed to decrease. It just says decrease. And then it says for this many until you reach this length. So it's going to take some brain power for me to get that done. I think really I'm gonna rely on my experience of making sweaters, and also I'm just gonna have to make good notes for myself as to what I do on the first side, I do on the same side so that the shaping is the same. But beautiful patterns in this book, but I really wouldn't recommend it to beginners because it is very minimal in the pattern writing directions. So, but beautiful pattern it is in like how it looks. It's a beautiful broken rib that's going swimmingly. So I think I only have maybe 3/4 of an inch, not even left. And then I get to do the back and then the front. So, you know, there is a chance that I could get it done in the next week because it has been my primary project now. It's the one I want to work on the most since I finished those purple socks, which was just earlier today. And then the other one that I've really been working on, it's been nice and easy for when I have appointments or like backstage kind of stuff. Let's see if I can get it out. It is living in my, this is an early Very Fun Yarns bag. Before it was even Very Fun Yarns bags, my mom made it for me. But I've got the first sock done. I think I showed you this last week, or maybe last time I was close to being done. It is just a Rose City roller sock in some Very Fun Yarns, the colorway Women Belong Everywhere. And I have cast on the, this is the problem with putting my projects directly in my purse. I need to have my needles wear a needle cozy when I have double points or they fall off. Okay, so I just cast on the top, and I think I just started, I just started the heel. So just that far. These will not take long to finish once I really get going on them. And I am going to take them out of that because that is a bit of a hot mess. The mini skein is a Homespun House mini skein. All right, so that is it for my projects. I want to quick give you some more news about Very Fun Yarns. I got my little notebook here so I don't forget anything. I told you about the new pattern release with the Garter Season hat, so don't forget that being on sale. The Garter Season hat is my 5th pattern. I have published 5 patterns in the last year, which I think is pretty exciting. I didn't realize I had done quite so many. The last couple kind of came quick, but in honor of that, I have decided to make one of my earlier patterns, the Snowplow Cowl. It is a simpler pattern, stockinette stitch, mohair, fingering held double in an infinity cowl that is now free, both on Ravelry and on my personal website. So head on over there and download the pattern, share it with friends, because you know, if you've never used one of my patterns before, it'll give you kind of a look at how I write patterns, and it's a great pattern. It's very cozy cowl, and yeah, I just wanted to make that free for everyone to enjoy. And then the big sale happening on my website, so fireflyberries.com. That website will be listed below with a direct link to the shop starting on Wednesday, November 20th through November 30th. Everything on my site, project bags, knitting needles, yarn, everything will be at least 20% off. There are a few things like knitting needles and a couple of bases that I'm discontinuing that are slightly at a slightly greater discount. So those are all on sale, and it's kind of, when they go, they go. So if you are interested in getting a good deal for a Christmas or a holiday gift giving, or just for yourself, if you've been looking at a sweater quantity of something and wasn't sure if it would fit your budget, now's a great time to head in there and to get that. So that'll be going on. And then if you are on my email newsletter, you will have received by now a special newsletter with a special little surprise gift that goes with that sale just for you. So be looking in your email. If you have subscribed to my email newsletter before, you should have received that today, the 19th. I think I sent it out late last night, so you should be in your inbox today. And then the only other thing I want to share with you is the Vlogmas. Maybe you're wondering what I'm going to be doing for Vlogmas if you've been around a while. If you haven't been around a while, Vlogmas is during the month of December. A lot of makers will do a video a day from December 1st through December 25th, sharing what they're doing to prepare for the holidays. It's a video log of what's going on everyday life with some knitting and making mixed in. And I have done that the last 2 years, I believe. Last year was my second year, so this will be my third year, in conjunction with my weekly Advent countdowns. This year I have decided I still enjoy doing it, but I am only going to put out videos once a week. So it'll be a weekly Vlogmas, and I'll take video throughout the week, but I'll compile it into one video each week. So every Sunday, starting December 1st, you can expect to see a video up on YouTube. I do think that I'm probably going to do a video over Thanksgiving weekend. So maybe like starting next week, Wednesday through Saturday, I'll probably do a video getting the house ready for Christmas, that kind of stuff. And that video will go out Sunday. And then I'll do 4 more. So I'll do the 1st, the 8th, the 15th, the 23rd, and then I think I might do the 30th too. So we'll see how it's going, but I might put out 5 videos, so it'll come after Christmas too, since Christmas itself, the days leading up to Christmas will be after I post my 4th video. So that's the plan right now, but you can watch this space or follow me on Instagram, where I am Very Fun Mom, and I will be posting details there. So I think that's it for now. Thank you so much for coming here to join me, and I hope you are all well and staying warm and cozy if you are in the Northern Hemisphere. Happy making, everybody. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.